Cassandra Bell didn't look like someone who owned a multi-billion-dollar bank. Not in her hoodie, not in her sneakers, not standing quietly in line at one of her own branches. So when the teller narrowed his eyes, when the manager refused to believe her name, and when security was called to escort her out, they had no idea who they were dealing with. What began as a routine withdrawal spiraled into something far bigger, because the woman they dismissed wasn't just another customer. She was there for a reason. And by the time they found out who she really was, the entire branch would be turned upside down. Real quick before we dive in, where do you usually watch these stories? On your break, before bed, or while multitasking at home? Drop it in the comments. This one's packed with emotion and power. You'll want to see how it unfolds. And hey, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. The morning light streamed through the windows of Cassandra Bell's penthouse apartment as she sipped her coffee, still dressed in sweatpants and a faded college hoodie. CNN played quietly in the background, another story about banking inequality in America's poorest neighborhoods. This wasn't just news to Cassandra, it was her life's work. At 42, Cassandra had built Horizon Financial from a single branch to a regional powerhouse with 30 locations across 3 states. But few people knew what the CEO of Horizon actually looked like. She rarely appeared in promotional materials. No glamour shots hung in branch lobbies. Just her name on documents and her voice in boardrooms. People treat you differently when they don't know who signs their paychecks, she often told her executive team. Growing up in Westland Heights, where check-cashing stores outnumbered actual banks 4-1, Cassandra had learned about financial discrimination early. Her mother, a hospital custodian, kept cash in cookie tins because no bank would approve her for an account after a single overdraft. When they did visit banks in wealthier neighborhoods, Cassandra noticed how security guards followed them, how tellers' smiles tightened. 20 years of climbing the corporate ladder hadn't erased those memories. If anything, her success had sharpened them. She glanced at her phone. 3 missed calls from her assistant and a text. Emergency with the Wellington merger. Need sign docs today. The merger papers were in her office downtown, but Cassandra was heading the opposite direction today. She'd planned another of her mystery shopper visits, showing up unannounced at one of her branches to experience service as an ordinary customer would. She did this monthly, wearing casual clothes and carrying only her driver's license and debit card. Today, she'd visit the Oakwood branch, a recent acquisition that served a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood. The manager there, Michael Winters, had excellent numbers but troubling customer service scores from lower-income clients. As Cassandra pulled her hair back into a simple ponytail, her phone buzzed again. The Wellington team needs signatures by noon, her assistant texted. Board members are asking questions. Cassandra sighed. The Wellington deal meant expanding services into rural communities that desperately needed banking alternatives to predatory lenders. It couldn't wait. Need to withdraw cash for courier, she texted back. Stopping at Oakwood branch first, then we'll come to office. She slipped on sneakers, grabbed her keys, and headed out, looking like any other woman running errands, not the owner of a $2.8 billion banking institution. The Oakwood neighborhood had changed dramatically in 5 years. New coffee shops and boutiques stood alongside decades-old family businesses. The Horizon branch itself had been renovated just 6 months ago, its exterior now gleaming with brushed steel and blue-tinted glass. Inside, the morning rush was in full swing. 2 tellers served a line of customers while loan officers sat at desks along the wall. Cassandra took her place in line, observing. The tellers were efficient but impersonal with most customers, though she noticed one, a young white man with a nameplate reading Craig, become animated when serving well-dressed white patrons. When a Latino man in work clothes reached the front, Craig's smile vanished. The interaction was curt, functional. The pattern repeated with an elderly black woman. Minimal eye contact. No small talk. Cassandra felt a familiar knot in her stomach. This wasn't just bad customer service. It was something she'd experienced her entire life. When her turn came, she approached Craig's window. "Good morning," she said. "I need to make a withdrawal." Craig barely looked up. "Account number." "I don't have my account number memorized, but I have my ID and debit card." She placed both on the counter. Craig glanced at her license, then at her a fleeting assessment of her casual appearance. How much do you want to withdraw? His tone was flat. $15,000. That got his attention. Craig's eyebrows rose as he typed her information. That's a significant amount. What's it for? Personal reasons, Cassandra replied calmly. Craig's eyes narrowed. We don't normally keep that much cash on hand for unplanned withdrawals. Cassandra knew this was false. Branch policy required maintaining at least $50,000 in large bills specifically for business clients. It's for a business transaction, she clarified, keeping her voice even. I'm happy to wait while you prepare it. Craig stared at his screen, then back at her with growing suspicion. There seems to be some confusion with your account, he said. It's showing unusual access privileges. Of course it was. She had the highest clearance possible. There's no confusion, Cassandra said. I'd like to speak to the branch manager, please. Craig's face hardened. Ma'am, I think you should come back another time with proper documentation for a withdrawal this size. Behind her, the line grew. People shifted impatiently. Whispers started. I'd like to speak to Michael Winters, Cassandra repeated, louder this time. Now, please. Craig picked up his phone, but instead of calling the manager, he pressed another button. Security to the front, please, he said, eyes locked on Cassandra. We have a situation. The security guard approached with his hand resting on his belt. He was tall with broad shoulders that strained against his uniform. Cassandra didn't move. She'd been in this exact situation before, just never in her own bank. Is there a problem here? The guard asked, directing the question at Craig, not Cassandra. This woman is attempting to withdraw $15,000 with insufficient identification, Craig explained, his voice carrying across the now silent lobby. And the account she's trying to access has security protocols. Customers openly stared now. An older white couple exchanged knowing glances. A young mother pulled her child closer. Ma'am, the guard said, turning to Cassandra, I'm going to need you to step aside. I provided my ID and debit card, Cassandra replied, her voice measured despite the humiliation burning in her chest. I'm a customer of this bank, and I'd like to speak with Michael Winters. Mr. Winters is busy with important clients. Craig cut in, emphasizing the word important in a way that made Cassandra's spine stiffen. Maybe you could come back another day. With an appointment. The subtext was clear. You don't belong here. You're not important enough. A woman behind the customer service desk had been watching the exchange. She approached now, her heels clicking against the marble floor. I can help you, she said to the security guard, not to Cassandra. Sir, please escort her to my desk. The guard placed his hand on Cassandra's elbow. She pulled away. Don't touch me, she said, her voice quiet but firm. I'll walk myself. The service desk was in a corner, conveniently out of earshot of other customers but fully visible, a perfect place to handle difficult people without creating a scene. Cassandra sat down, her face a mask of composure, while her heart pounded. I'm Jennifer, the woman said. Now, what seems to be the issue? There is no issue, Cassandra replied. I need to make a withdrawal from my account. Craig refused to process it and called security instead of the manager as I requested. Jennifer glanced at her computer. And your name, Cassandra Bell. Jennifer's fingers froze over the keyboard. She looked up sharply. Cassandra Bell, she repeated. Yes. Jennifer typed rapidly, her expression changing as she scrolled through whatever appeared on her screen. One moment, please, she said, her tone suddenly cautious. She picked up her phone and dialed an extension. Michael, you need to come out here. Now. 2 minutes later, Michael Winters emerged from his office. He was in his 50s, with silver hair and expensive suit that broadcast authority. He approached with a confident stride of someone used to solving problems. I'm the branch manager, he announced. How can I help? This woman claims to be Cassandra Bell, Jennifer said quietly. Michael's eyes flickered with brief confusion before he composed himself. I see. And do you have any additional identification? Bell. The slight pause before her name revealed his disbelief. Cassandra had encountered this reaction countless times, people who couldn't reconcile her appearance with her position. My driver's license and bank card weren't sufficient for your teller, she replied. What additional identification would satisfy you? Michael gave her a patronizing smile. Well, if you were who you claim to be, you'd understand our security protocols. Cassandra Bell is the CEO of Horizon Financial. She wouldn't simply walk in unannounced for a cash withdrawal. Actually, she would, Cassandra replied. And she does. Regularly. Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances. Craig was watching from his station, clearly pleased that his suspicions seemed confirmed. Look, Michael said, lowering his voice, I don't know what you're trying to pull here, but I personally know Ms. Bell, and you've never met me, Cassandra interrupted. We've had 3 video conferences, but we've never been in the same room. Michael's confident expression faltered. Even if that were true, he countered, the real Cassandra Bell would have proper channels for handling financial matters. Not showing up in. His eyes swept over her casual clothes, this attire demanding cash. The lobby had grown busier, with more customers witnessing her humiliation. Some were openly recording with their phones. Cassandra had a choice, walk out and return in acceptable clothing or end this now. She reached for her phone. I need to make a call, she said. Ma'am, I think it's best if you leave, Michael replied. Before we have to involve the authorities. Cassandra ignored him, dialing a number from memory. After 2 rings, a woman answered. Tanya Roberts speaking. Tanya, it's Cassandra. Security protocol, Zeta 59. Confirm identity. There was a pause on the line. Confirmed, Tanya replied. What's happening? I'm at the Oakwood branch. Lock down all system access for this location immediately. Authorization Bell Echo November 11. Understood. Locking down now. Michael was watching with growing confusion when suddenly every computer in the branch pinged simultaneously. Craig called out from his station. The systems locked us out. Jennifer's monitor displayed a security message. Branch access suspended. What's happening? Michael demanded, his face paling. Cassandra stood up, phone still in hand. I'm freezing this branch pending an emergency board meeting. 3 hours from now, right here. I suggest you prepare yourself, Mr. Winters, because we have a lot to discuss about how you run my bank. The phone in Michael's pocket rang. When he answered, his face drained of color as he listened to the voice on the other end. Yes, Ms. Robert, he stammered. I understand. Yes, she's right here. There was a misunderstanding. When he lowered the phone, his eyes met Cassandra's with new recognition and fear. Ms. Bell, he said, his voice barely audible. I sincerely apologize for the confusion, but Cassandra was already walking toward the exit, her hoodie and sneakers now casting a very different impression on the stunned staff and customers. 3 hours, she called over her shoulder. Don't go anywhere. Cassandra sat in the back of her town car, staring silently out the window as the city blurred past. Her driver, James, kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Everything okay, Ms. Bell? He finally asked. No, she answered honestly. But it will be. In the 20 minutes since leaving the Oakwood branch, her phone had exploded with notifications. Tanya Roberts had mobilized the executive team. The board members were clearing their schedules. The company's legal counsel had already pulled employee records and branch performance data. When Cassandra arrived at headquarters, Tanya was waiting in the lobby. Her normal composure was fractured by concern. I've never heard you use a security lockdown before, she said, falling into step beside Cassandra as they headed toward the elevator. What happened? I got to experience exactly how our staff treats customers who look like me, Cassandra replied, her voice tight. It wasn't a surprise, but it was educational. In her office, Cassandra changed into the spare clothes she kept there, a tailored navy blazer, crisp white blouse, and matching slacks. As she transformed from casual customer to CEO, she reflected on how clothing altered perception. How a hoodie made her suspicious, while a blazer made her respectable. Same woman, same brain, same accomplishments, different treatment. Her phone rang. It was David Chin, the head of legal. I reviewed the security footage from Oakwood, he said without preamble. It's worse than you described. The employee, Craig Phillips, has a pattern. I pulled 6 months of recordings and customer complaint data. Send me everything, Cassandra instructed. And David, prepare termination papers. Already done. By noon, Cassandra had reviewed dozens of video clips showing Craig's interactions with customers. The pattern was clear and damning. White customers received smiles, conversation, benefit of the doubt. Black and Latino customers faced additional questions, suspicious glances, suggestions to try simpler banking products. Michael Winters had never intervened, despite customer complaints. The board meeting was brief and unanimous. They trusted Cassandra's judgment. This wasn't just about one bad incident. It was about the culture she was building. "We'll back whatever action you deem necessary," the board chair told her. At 2:30 p.m., Cassandra's car pulled up to the Oakwood branch again. This time, she wasn't alone. Tanya Roberts, David Chin, and 2 members of the board accompanied her, all of them Black or people of color. Inside, the branch remained locked to customers, a temporarily closed sign on the door. The employees sat in the break room, tension thick in the air. Craig looked defiant. Michael looked ill. When Cassandra entered, now dressed as the executive she was, the room fell silent. "For those who haven't met me in person, I'm Cassandra Bell, CEO of Horizon Financial and owner of this bank," she began, her voice calm but carrying authority that filled the room. 3 hours ago, I was in this branch as a customer. I experienced treatment that was dismissive, discriminatory, and against every principle this institution claims to stand for. She nodded to David, who distributed folders to each employee. These contain evidence of a pattern of discriminatory behavior at this branch. Different service standards based on race. Different approval rates for identical applications. Different wait times based on customer appearance. Craig shifted uncomfortably as Michael stared at the floor. "Mr. Phillips," Cassandra continued, looking directly at Craig, "your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Please gather your personal belongings." Craig jumped to his feet. "This is ridiculous. You can't fire me because you didn't like how I handled a suspicious transaction." "I'm not firing you for today," Cassandra replied evenly. "I'm firing you for the documented pattern of discrimination against customers of color over the past 18 months. It's all in that folder with timestamps and customer names." Security escorted a protesting Craig from the room. The remaining employees sat frozen, wondering who would be next. Cassandra turned to Michael. "Mr. Winters, you failed in your responsibility to ensure equal treatment for all customers. You've ignored complaints, missed warning signs, and today, you participated in discriminatory behavior yourself." Michael's face crumpled. "Ms. Bell, please. I have a family, a mortgage. So do the people you've allowed to be mistreated in this branch," Cassandra replied. "However, unlike Mr. Phillips, your record shows no active participation in discrimination, just a failure to prevent it." She paused, considering the man before her. "I'm offering you a choice: resignation or demotion to assistant manager with mandatory training and a 6-month probation period. During that time, you'll help implement the changes we're about to make here." The room buzzed with whispers. This wasn't the wholesale firing they'd expected. "Which brings me to why we're all here," Cassandra continued, addressing the entire staff. "Today marks a turning point for the Oakwood branch. Beginning tomorrow, this location will be closed for 2 weeks for retraining and reorganization." She nodded to Tanya, who started distributing another set of documents. "We're not just changing personnel," Cassandra explained. "We're changing culture. Every employee will undergo comprehensive anti-bias training. Customer service protocols will be redesigned with input from community members. And most importantly, we're changing who we hire." The employees' faces showed confusion, fear, and for a few, a flicker of hope. Horizon Financial is launching a community banking initiative, with Oakwood as our pilot location. We'll be hiring 10 new positions filled specifically from within this neighborhood. People who understand the community because they live in it. Michael looked up surprised. "New positions?" "Yes," Cassandra confirmed. "Because banking should reflect the communities it serves. And this branch doesn't, not yet." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "One last thing. I'll be personally overseeing this transition. I'll be here every day for the next 2 weeks. And after we reopen, I'll be conducting regular visits, sometimes as the CEO, sometimes as just another customer in a hoodie. She let that sink in. The choice I gave Mr. Winters extends to all of you. You can be part of the change, or you can resign. But what you can't do is continue business as usual. As she turned to leave, one of the tellers spoke up. Why? The young woman asked. Why not just fire us all and start over? Cassandra considered the question carefully before answering. Because discrimination isn't solved by punishment alone, she said finally. It's solved by transformation. And transformation requires witnesses who can testify to the change. The next morning, the Oakwood branch remained closed to the public, but inside, transformation had already begun. The lobby furniture had been rearranged into a circle of chairs. Cassandra sat among the nervous employees, deliberately choosing a seat between two tellers who had witnessed her humiliation the day before. Banking isn't just about money, she began. It's about dignity, access, trust. Yesterday, this branch failed on all 3 counts, and not just with me, but with countless customers before me. She nodded to a woman standing near the door, who wheeled in a television. This is Dr. Aisha Johnson from the Center for Financial Equity. She'll be guiding us through some difficult conversations today. Dr. Johnson was a commanding presence, tall, with locks pulled back in a professional style, wearing a crimson blazer that stood out like a warning flag. I'm going to show you something uncomfortable, she announced without preamble. These are recordings from this branch over the past 3 months. The screen flickered to life, showing a split view of 2 customer interactions. On the left, a white customer being greeted warmly, offered coffee, guided through options. On the right, a black customer with similar banking needs, receiving curt responses, fewer options, more scrutiny. Some employees shifted uncomfortably. Others looked genuinely shocked. Michael Winters, now stripped of his manager title, stared at the floor. This isn't one cherry-picked example, Dr. Johnson continued, advancing through more clips. This is a pattern. And patterns like this exist because of 2 things, explicit bias and implicit systems that support it. For the next 3 hours, Dr. Johnson led them through exercises designed to uncover unconscious bias. Role-playing scenarios where they experienced discriminatory treatment themselves. Data analysis showing how seemingly neutral policies had discriminatory impacts. Cassandra participated fully, sharing her own experiences not just from yesterday, but from a lifetime of banking while black. My mother kept cash in cookie tins, she told the silent room. Not because she wanted to, but because after one overdraft when I was sick and needed medicine, her bank closed her account. No second chances. When she tried to open an account elsewhere, she was denied. That's how generational poverty continues, when systems that should provide opportunity instead become barriers. During a break, a teller named Sophia approached Cassandra tentatively. I had no idea, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I knew Craig was different with certain customers, but I didn't realize how systematic it was. Most discrimination isn't loud, Cassandra replied. It's in the small differences, the extra questions, the missing smiles, the assumptions about what products someone can understand or afford. After lunch, the focus shifted from awareness to action. Tanya Roberts presented the restructuring plan for the branch. We're not just changing rules, she explained. We're changing metrics. Success will no longer be measured solely by accounts opened or loans processed, but by community impact. Customer satisfaction scores will be weighted by demographic group to ensure equal service quality. The afternoon session was interrupted when James, Cassandra's driver, entered with an urgent message. She stepped outside to take a call. Ms. Bell, it's David Shin. Craig Phillips is threatening to sue for wrongful termination. He's claiming he was following standard security protocols and that you're engaging in reverse discrimination. Cassandra wasn't surprised. Let him try. Our documentation is solid. There's more, David continued. He's contacted several customers, the ones he gave preferential treatment to, and they're organizing a petition to save their favorite teller. They're planning a protest outside the branch tomorrow. This was unexpected. How many people? Social media suggests around 30, maybe more. Cassandra considered this development. A public protest could derail the transformation before it began. Let them come, she decided. In fact, set up refreshments outside. And make sure our community outreach team is there to engage with them. You want to serve refreshments to people protesting against us? David sounded bewildered. I want to transform opponents into allies, Cassandra explained. These customers aren't the problem. They received excellent service. They don't know others were treated differently. This is an opportunity to educate, not antagonize. When she returned to the training session, Dr. Johnson was discussing the concept of repair. Acknowledging harm is only the first step, she was saying. True transformation requires making amends and creating new systems that prevent future harm. Cassandra rejoined the circle. Which brings us to tomorrow's agenda. We'll be welcoming some special guests, community members who've experienced banking discrimination, alongside business owners and residents who depend on this branch. Michael Winters raised his hand hesitantly. Will you be sharing yesterday's incident with them? No, Cassandra replied. This isn't about public shaming. It's about public accountability. What happened to me was simply a window into a larger problem. Focusing on my experience would make this about individuals rather than systems. As the day's session concluded, Cassandra asked everyone to write down one commitment for change, something concrete they would do differently when the branch reopened. Sophia wrote, I will track my own customer interaction times to ensure I'm giving equal attention to everyone. Another teller committed to learning Spanish to better serve the neighborhood's growing Latino population. Michael Winters wrote simply, I will listen when customers report problems, not defend the status quo. After everyone left, Cassandra remained in the empty branch. She walked through the space slowly, imagining it transformed, not just in policy, but in feeling. Banking was about trust, and trust had been broken here. Rebuilding it would take more than one day of training or new mission statements on the wall. It would take visible, meaningful change. She sat down at what had been Craig's window, looking out at the diverse neighborhood beyond the glass. Tomorrow would bring protesters, critics, skeptics, but it would also bring opportunity. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call from Tanya. The protest is growing online, Tanya reported. Local news might pick it up. Good, Cassandra replied. Good. Tanya sounded alarmed. Yes, Cassandra said firmly. Because we're going to use it to announce something bigger than they're expecting. The community initiative. That's just the beginning, Cassandra explained. Tomorrow, we're announcing the Horizon Equity Fund. $10 million dedicated to supporting Black and Latino businesses in our service areas, starting right here in Oakwood. There was a moment of silence before Tanya responded. The board hasn't approved that. They will, Cassandra said with quiet confidence. Because it's not just the right thing to do, it's good business. These communities have been banking deserts for generations. There's untapped potential here that our competitors are too blind to see. After hanging up, Cassandra made one last call to her assistant. Cancel my meetings for the next 2 weeks, she instructed. And find me an apartment to rent in Oakwood. I'm staying in the neighborhood until this branch reopens. This wasn't just about fixing one bad experience or firing one biased employee. It was about transforming an entire system, starting with one branch in one neighborhood. And Cassandra Bell was just getting started. The protesters arrived early the next morning, just as Cassandra had anticipated. About 40 people gathered outside the branch, most of them white, middle-aged, and carrying hastily made signs with messages like "Bring back Craig" and "Stop the woke banking." What they didn't expect was the welcome committee. Cassandra had set up a refreshment table with coffee and pastries from a local Black-owned bakery. Community outreach staff circulated with information packets about the branch's transformation plans. From inside, Michael Winters watched in disbelief. They're serving coffee to people who are protesting against us? They're not protesting against us, Cassandra corrected him. They're protesting against a change they don't understand. Our job is to help them understand. The local news had arrived, exactly as Cassandra had hoped. A reporter approached her as she walked outside to face the crowd. Ms. Bell, How do you respond to allegations that you fired an employee for simply doing his job? Cassandra smiled calmly. I'd be happy to address that, but first, I'd like to welcome everyone here today. Whether you've come to express concern or curiosity, you're demonstrating that you care about your local bank, and that matters to us. Her unexpected warmth momentarily disarmed the protesters. A man holding an unfair firing sign lowered it slightly. Mr. Phillips was terminated after a thorough review of customer interactions over 18 months, not because of a single incident, Cassandra continued. While I respect the privacy of personnel matters, I can say that Horizon Financial has zero tolerance for treating customers differently based on their appearance or background. The reporter pressed further. Some customers say Mr. Phillips was their favorite teller. They felt he gave personalized service. I'm sure he did offer some customers, Cassandra acknowledged. But banking services should be excellent for everyone, not just for those who look a certain way or have certain account balances. She gestured toward the branch. That's why today, we're not just addressing one employee's actions. We're transforming how this entire branch serves the community. This was her opening. Camera crews had arrived from 2 more stations, sensing a bigger story than a simple protest. Horizon Financial is proud to announce a series of initiatives that will make the Oakwood branch a model for inclusive banking nationwide. For the next 5 minutes, Cassandra outlined the changes. Hiring from within the community, expanded hours to accommodate working families, simplified account options with reduced fees, financial literacy workshops, and small business support services. Then she delivered the announcement she'd been saving. And today, I'm especially proud to announce the creation of the Horizon Equity Fund, a $10 million commitment to support Black and Latino-owned businesses in underserved communities, beginning right here in Oakwood. The crowd fell silent. Even the protesters seemed caught off guard by the scale of the announcement. A woman toward the back called out, "Is this just because you got bad service? Seems like an overreaction." Cassandra met her gaze directly. This isn't a reaction. It's a culmination. For years, we've been gathering data on banking inequality in our service areas. What happened recently simply confirmed what the numbers were already telling us, that we needed to do better. She paused, then added, "And let me be clear, this isn't charity. This is smart business. There is tremendous untapped potential in communities that traditional banking has overlooked. We're not just doing this because it's right, though it is. We're doing it because it makes financial sense to invest in all communities, not just some." The protest began to lose momentum as people engaged with the outreach staff, asking questions about the new programs. Some wandered away, their signs discarded near the refreshment table. Others lingered, their expressions shifting from anger to curiosity. Inside the branch, the day's training continued. Community members arrived, small business owners, longtime residents, young professionals to share their banking experiences with the staff. They spoke of being asked for extra ID, of loan applications mysteriously denied, of being steered toward check cashing services instead of proper accounts. Michael Winters listened with growing discomfort. These weren't abstract concepts anymore. They were real people from his branch's service area describing exactly what the training had covered. During the lunch break, he approached Cassandra. "I've been a manager here for 5 years," he said quietly. "I never saw any of this. Did you look?" Cassandra asked simply. Michael's silence was answer enough. "That's why I'm not firing you," she continued. "Because you need to see it now. Really see it. And then help fix it." The afternoon brought another unexpected development. Craig Phillips had scheduled a press conference at a coffee shop across the street, clearly hoping to capitalize on the morning's media presence. He arrived with an attorney and a small group of supporters. Tanya rushed to Cassandra with the news. "He's making all sorts of claims that the bank is engaging in reverse discrimination, that you're using one incident to push a political agenda." Cassandra remained calm. "Let him speak. We'll respond with facts, not fear." She gathered the training participants. "This is actually perfect timing. We're about to experience resistance to change in real time. Watch how allegations without evidence are used to maintain the status quo." They clustered around a laptop streaming Craig's press conference. "I was fired for following standard security protocols," Craig claimed, his voice indignant. Ms. Bell came in dressed inappropriately for a high-value transaction, provided minimal identification, and became confrontational when I asked routine security questions. His attorney added, "My client is considering legal action for wrongful termination and defamation of character. This appears to be a case of reverse discrimination and using corporate power to advance a personal political agenda." Dr. Johnson paused the stream. "This is textbook resistance. Notice the inversion, claiming discrimination against the person who was actually discriminating. Notice the framing of equality as a political agenda rather than a basic right." Cassandra stood. "We won't be drawn into a public battle of accusations. Our response will be consistent and evidence-based." She drafted a simple statement, which Tanya delivered to the waiting reporters. Horizon Financial's employment decisions are based on documented performance issues over time, not isolated incidents. We have extensive evidence supporting our actions and will address any legal claims in the appropriate forums. Our focus remains on improving service for all customers and the communities we serve. By late afternoon, something remarkable had happened. The protest had transformed into an impromptu community forum. Staff members were engaged in conversations with neighborhood residents. Local business owners were inquiring about the new equity fund. Even some of Craig's original supporters had stayed to learn more about the branch changes. Inside, Michael Winters was having a revelation of his own. During a role-playing exercise, he'd been cast as a black customer with perfect credit being denied a loan. The feeling of powerlessness, of not being believed despite having all the right qualifications, had shaken him deeply. "I think I understand now," he told Cassandra quietly as the day's session ended. "Not completely. I know I can't fully understand, but I see what I was missing before." Cassandra nodded. "Understanding is the beginning. Action is what matters next." As everyone prepared to leave, Cassandra made one final announcement. "Tomorrow, we're leaving this branch. We'll be conducting our training at locations throughout the Oakwood neighborhood, the community center, the library, local businesses. Banking doesn't happen in isolation, and neither should our understanding of the community we serve." She looked around at the staff, seeing genuine engagement on faces that had shown only fear or resistance the day before. This transformation isn't just about policies or programs. It's about perspective. Seeing the world through others' eyes. Recognizing that good service isn't just about what you offer, it's about how it's received. Outside, the last of the protesters had dispersed. The news vans were gone. But something had changed in the atmosphere around the Oakwood branch. A conversation had started that couldn't easily be silenced. And in that conversation lay the seeds of real transformation. 3 months later, the Oakwood branch reopened with little resemblance to its former self. The physical changes were immediately apparent. Walls had been removed to create a more open, welcoming space. The imposing teller counter had been replaced with accessible service pods. Local artwork hung on the walls, celebrating the neighborhood's diverse history. But the most significant changes weren't visible in the architecture. 7 new employees, all hired from within the Oakwood community, joined the returning staff. Among them was Jamal Washington, a 32-year-old former teacher who had once been denied a small business loan by the very branch where he now worked as a loan officer. "I never thought I'd work at a bank," Jamal admitted during the staff meeting before the grand reopening. "Banking never felt like it was for people like me." Cassandra, who had remained closely involved with the branch transformation, nodded in understanding. "That's exactly why you're needed here." Michael Winters, now serving as assistant manager under a new branch manager named Diana Rodriguez, had undergone a remarkable transformation himself. The formerly defensive, status quo-oriented manager had become an outspoken advocate for the new approach. "The numbers don't lie," he told the team as they reviewed the pre-opening metrics. "Our community outreach has already generated more account applications than we saw in the previous 6 months combined." Diana, who had transferred from another branch where she'd implemented similar community-focused initiatives on a smaller scale, nodded in agreement. "And the quality of those applications is stronger too. When people feel welcome, they bring their full business, not just their immediate transaction." As the doors prepared to open for the first time in 3 months, Cassandra gathered everyone for a final word. "Today isn't the end of our transformation, it's the beginning," she reminded them. The real test comes in daily interactions, consistent policy application, and genuine relationship building. She looked at each person individually. Banking is about trust. Trust is built through actions, not promises. Every customer who walks through that door should leave feeling valued, not because we said the right words, but because we demonstrated through our actions that their financial well-being matters to us. The doors opened, and customers began to stream in, some curious, some cautious, many excited by the changes they've been hearing about. Within an hour, the branch was bustling. Cassandra observed from a quiet corner. She watched as Sophia, one of the returning tellers, spent extra time with an elderly Latina woman, explaining new account features without rushing. She noticed how Jamal connected with a young black entrepreneur, discussing business strategies alongside loan options. Most telling was watching Michael Winters. The former manager moved throughout the space with a new awareness, noticing which customers were being served quickly and which might need additional attention. At one point, he stepped in when he saw a new customer looking confused at the digital kiosk, offering assistance with the same warm demeanor to everyone regardless of appearance. Around noon, a familiar face entered the branch, Craig Phillips. His lawsuit had been quietly withdrawn when faced with the mountain of evidence Horizon had compiled. Now he seemed smaller somehow, less confident as he looked around the transformed space. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Staff members who had worked with him exchanged nervous glances. Cassandra moved forward to intercept him, but Michael beat her to it. "Welcome to Horizon," Michael said evenly. "How can we help you today?" Craig seemed startled by the professional greeting from his former boss. "I need to close my accounts," he mumbled, not meeting Michael's eyes. "I'd be happy to assist you with that," Michael replied, maintaining the same courteous tone he'd used with every other customer that morning. "Please follow me." Cassandra watched as Michael conducted the transaction with perfect professionalism, no better and no worse than he would for any other client. This, perhaps more than anything else she'd seen that day, confirmed that the transformation was taking root. Later that afternoon, a community group arrived for the branch's first financial literacy workshop. The conference room, previously reserved for premier clients only, now hosted a diverse gathering of neighborhood residents eager to learn about budgeting, credit building, and homeownership pathways. Diana Rodriguez led the session with natural ease, switching between English and Spanish to ensure everyone fully understood the concepts. Jamal assisted, drawing on his teaching background to break down complex financial ideas into accessible lessons. As the day wound down, Cassandra received a surprising visitor, Tanya Roberts, bringing news from headquarters. "The board is impressed," Tanya reported, glancing around at the still busy branch. "The Oakwood model is already generating interest from our other regional managers. They want to know when we're expanding the approach." "When we've proven it works," Cassandra replied. "Not just for a day or a week, but sustainably. Banking is a long game." "The early numbers are promising," Tanya pressed, pulling out her tablet to show Cassandra the data. New accounts up 47% compared to pre-closure figures. Loan applications increased by 32%. And most importantly, customer satisfaction scores from previously underserved demographics have risen dramatically. Cassandra nodded, but her attention was drawn to something else, a young black mother with 2 small children approaching Sophia's service pod. The woman looked nervous, clutching a worn purse and some paperwork. "Excuse me," Cassandra said to Tanya, moving closer to observe the interaction. Sophia greeted the woman warmly, inviting her to sit while offering the children crayons and coloring sheets, a small touch added during the redesign. "I'm hoping to open my first checking account," the woman explained hesitantly. "I've been using cash and money orders, but it's getting too complicated." "We'd be happy to help you with that," Sophia replied, her tone genuinely welcoming. "Let's talk about what options might work best for your situation." What followed was exactly what banking should be, a conversation about needs, options, and solutions. No assumptions. No steering toward minimum services. Just respectful guidance through the process. When the woman left 30 minutes later, she had a new account, direct deposit forms for her employer, and a mobile banking app installed on her phone. More importantly, she left with something that couldn't be measured in a marketing report: dignity. Cassandra turned back to Tanya. That, she said quietly, pointing to the departing customer, is how we'll know it works. One customer at a time, one interaction at a time. As closing time approached, the staff gathered for a brief debrief. The energy was high despite the long day. I helped 7 people open their first checking accounts today, Sophia reported proudly. 7. In one day. 3 small business owners applied for the new microfinance program, Jamal added. All from right here in the neighborhood. Michael Winters had been quieter than the others, listening rather than sharing. When Cassandra caught his eye, he finally spoke. I've been in banking for 23 years, he said, his voice reflective. Today was the first day I felt like I was actually providing a service instead of just processing transactions. After everyone left, Cassandra remained behind, walking through the quiet branch. The transformation wasn't perfect. There had been hiccups throughout the day, systems that still needed refinement, staff who were still learning. But something fundamental had shifted. This was no longer just a bank. It was becoming a community institution. Her phone buzzed with a text from the board chair. Preliminary numbers from Oakwood look outstanding. When can we discuss system-wide implementation? Cassandra smiled as she typed her reply. Soon. But first, let's make sure this isn't just a good day, but a new direction. Change that last, she knew, required more than remodeled spaces or revised policies. It required a shift in hearts and minds, not just in how banking was delivered, but in how bankers saw their role in the communities they served. The Oakwood branch was just the beginning. One branch in one neighborhood. But its ripples were already spreading. 1 year after the infamous hoodie incident, Cassandra Bell stood at a podium outside the Oakwood branch, addressing a crowd that spilled onto the sidewalk. Behind her, a banner proclaimed, Celebrating Community Banking, 1 year of transformation. When I walked into this branch a year ago, she began, her voice carrying across the hushed audience. I experienced what too many Americans face every day, judgment based on appearance rather than character. But today, we're not here to dwell on what went wrong. We're here to celebrate what went right afterward. The crowd, a diverse mix of customers, employees, community leaders, and banking industry representatives, broke into applause. The Oakwood model wasn't created in a boardroom, Cassandra continued. It was built right here, through difficult conversations, honest feedback, and a willingness to reimagine what banking could be. She gestured to the staff lined up beside her, the original employees who had stayed through the transformation alongside the new hires from the community. Diana Rodriguez, the branch manager, stepped forward with a large poster displaying the year's results. The numbers tell a compelling story, Diana explained. Account openings up 78% year over year. Loan approvals increased by 63% across all demographic groups. Customer satisfaction ratings at 96%, the highest in Horizon's entire network. Michael Winters came forward next, noticeably more comfortable in his public role than he would have been a year ago. But the most important numbers aren't on this chart, he added. They're in the 127 first-time homebuyers we've helped, the 42 small businesses we've funded, the 350 children who've opened their first savings accounts through our school outreach program. Jamal Washington followed, his natural teacher's presence drawing the crowd's attention. Before I worked here, I was denied a loan by this very branch, he admitted candidly. Today, I've personally approved financing for 15 entrepreneurs who remind me of myself, people with solid plans but who might not have fit the traditional banking mold. As the presentation continued, Cassandra scanned the crowd. Near the back, she spotted a familiar face, Craig Phillips, the teller whose discrimination had catalyzed this transformation. He wasn't protesting or disrupting. He was simply listening, his expression unreadable. After the formal program ended, Cassandra mingled with the attendees. Community members shared stories of how the reimagined branch had impacted their lives. Banking executives from other institutions asked pointed questions about implementation and scalability. Journalists scribbled notes for features on the Oakwood revolution in banking. Tanya Roberts approached, tablet in hand as always. The board is ecstatic, she reported. They've approved the expansion to 5 more branches this quarter, with full network implementation over the next 18 months. And the equity fund? Cassandra asked. Outperforming projections, Tanya confirmed. The initial $10 million has already generated significant returns. The board has approved another $15 million for the next phase. As the crowd began to disperse, Cassandra noticed Craig Phillips hovering at the edge of the gathering. After a moment's hesitation, she approached him. "Hello, Craig." He seemed startled that she'd recognized him, or perhaps that she'd acknowledged him at all. "Ms. Bell," he replied stiffly. "Congratulations on your success." "Thank you for coming today," she said, genuinely curious. "May I ask why you did?" Craig glanced around, then sighed. "I wanted to see if it was real, I guess. All these claims about transformation and community impact. And your verdict." He hesitated. "It's impressive. I still think what happened to me was unfair, but—" He gestured toward the branch. "I can't argue with what you've built here." Cassandra nodded, neither agreeing nor disagreeing with his assessment of fairness. "Change is rarely comfortable, Craig, especially when it challenges our view of ourselves." Before he could respond, they were interrupted by an elderly black woman approaching Cassandra with tears in her eyes. "Ms. Bell, I had to thank you in person," the woman said, clasping Cassandra's hands in her own. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 62 years. Until last year, I kept my money in a lockbox because banks never felt safe. Now my grandchildren have college funds. My daughter has a home loan. You've changed 3 generations of my family." As the woman embraced her, Cassandra caught Craig's expression, a complex mix of discomfort, realization, and perhaps a hint of understanding. He nodded once, then turned and walked away. Later that evening, after the celebration had ended, Cassandra met with her leadership team in the branch's community room. The space, once reserved for premium clients, now hosted financial literacy classes, community meetings, and today, a reflection on the year's journey. The Oakwood model is being featured in the Harvard Business Review next month, Tanya announced. They're calling it Equality as Strategy, the business case for inclusive banking. Diana Rodriguez had more immediate concerns. As we expand to other branches, how do we ensure this isn't just treated as a diversity program? This was a fundamental rethinking of banking relationships. "That's exactly why we're moving deliberately," Cassandra replied. "Each new location will have a transition team that includes staff from Oakwood. This isn't a program we can simply drop into branches. It has to grow organically in each community." Michael Winters, who will be leading one of those transition teams, nodded in agreement. "What worked here won't be identical in other neighborhoods. The principles are universal, but the implementation has to be local." As the discussion continued, Cassandra found herself reflecting on the journey. The transformation of the Oakwood branch hadn't been perfect. There had been setbacks, resistance, and moments of doubt. Several employees had resigned rather than adapt. Some customers had moved their accounts in protest. But for every account lost, 10 new ones had been opened. For every employee who left, 3 diverse candidates had applied. What had begun as a response to discrimination had evolved into a revolutionary approach to community banking. After the meeting concluded, Cassandra took a moment alone in the branch lobby. She sat in one of the comfortable chairs that had replaced the intimidating rows of roped lines, looking around at the space she'd once been humiliated in. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Banking Industry Association names Horizon Financial most innovative community bank, cites Oakwood model as game-changing approach to financial inclusion. She allowed herself a small smile. Industry recognition was valuable for expanding the model, but it wasn't why she'd pursued this path. Cassandra thought back to her mother and the cookie tins filled with cash. How different might her family's financial journey have been if banks had welcomed them instead of viewing them with suspicion? How many families were still trapped in cycles of financial exclusion because banking didn't see their potential? The transformation of Oakwood was just one branch in one city. But its approach was spreading, not just within Horizon, but beyond. Competitors were taking notice. Regulators were studying the results. Banking journals were analyzing the methodology. What had begun with a CEO in a hoodie being denied access to her own money had catalyzed something much larger than herself. As Cassandra prepared to leave, she paused at the community board near the entrance. Among the flyers for upcoming financial workshops and small business spotlights was a simple framed quotation she'd insisted on displaying. Banking is not merely a transaction. It is a relationship of trust. And trust must be earned anew each day with each customer, regardless of appearance, background, or account balance. She touched the frame lightly, then turned toward the door. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to falter or succeed. The work of transformation was never truly finished. But today, in this space that had once embodied discrimination, something remarkable had taken root. Not perfection, not utopia, but progress, tangible, measurable, meaningful progress. And sometimes that was the most powerful revolution of all. That's the end of the story. Do you think Michael deserved a second chance? Or should Cassandra have let him go too? Drop your thoughts below. We read every comment. Thanks for watching. And if this story moved you, share it with someone. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you're still in the mood for justice served right, click and keep watching.